Hello everyone. Factors that help to mitigate caste-based discrimination. British rule, perhaps without intention, created certain conditions that undermined caste consciousness to an extent. British rule in India unleashed certain forces and sometimes through direct administrative measures and sometimes indirectly by creating suitable conditions. Though these measures had negative effects in one way, they had a positive effect too. For instance, the creation of private property in land and free sale of land upset caste equations. A close interlink between the caste and vocation could not survive as village autarky crumbled. Besides, modern commerce and industry gave rise to several economic avenues, while growing urbanization and modern means of transport added to the mobility of populations. The British administration introduced the concept of equality before law in a uniformly applied system of law, which dealt a severe blow to social and legal inequalities, while the judicial functions of caste panchayats were taken away. The administrative services were made open to all castes, and the new education system was on totally secular lines. The social reform movements also strove to undermine caste based exploitation. From the mid 19th century onwards, numerous organizations and groups such as the Brahma Samaj, Pratna Samaj, Arya Samaj, Ramakrishna Mission, Theosophists, Theosophists, the Social Conference, and individuals worked to spread education among the untouchables and remove restrictions imposed on them from entering temples or using ponds, tanks, etc. Although many of them defended the Chaturvarna system, they criticized untouchability. The social reformers attacked the rigid hereditary basis of caste distinctions and the law of karma, which formed the basis of the religio-philosophic defense of the undemocratic authoritarian caste institution. They called on people to work for betterment in the real world in which they lived rather than strive for salvation after death. For instance, the Arya Samaj, while crusading against the disintegration of Hindu society into myriad subcastes, aimed at reconstructing it on the original fourfold division and upholding the right of even the lowest castes to study the scriptures. The national movement took inspiration from the principles of liberty and equality against the forces which tended to divide the society. The national leaders and organizations opposed to caste privileges fought for equal civic rights and free development of the individual. The caste divisions were diluted, although in a limited manner, because of mass participation in demonstrations, meetings, and satyagraha struggles. The Congress governments in various provinces after 1937 did some useful work for the upliftment of the depressed classes. For instance, free education for Harijans untouchables was introduced in some provinces. The rulers of states like Travancore, Indore, and Devas took the initiative in opening all state temples by proclamation. Gandhi always had in mind the objective of eradicating untouchability by root and branch. His ideas were based on the grounds of humanism and reason. He argued that the Shastras did not sanction untouchability, and even if they did, they should be ignored since truth cannot be confined within the covers of a book. In 1932, he founded the All India Harijan Sangh. With increasing opportunities of education and general awakening, there were stirrings among the lower castes themselves. This awakening gradually developed into a powerful movement in defense of their rights and against upper caste oppression. In Maharashtra, Jyotiba Phule, born in a low caste Mali family, led a movement against the Brahminical domination of Hindu society. He accorded the highest priority to education of lower castes, especially girls, for whom he opened several schools. Gopal Baba Valankar, also known as Gopal Krishna, is considered to be a pioneer in the movement to uplift the untouchable people from the socio-economic oppression that they had been subject to for ages. He worked against caste discrimination in Raigad district. He expanded on Phule's theory of the Aryan invasion that the indigenous inhabitants of India were actually the untouchable people and that caste was created by the invading Aryans to subjugate and control the indigenous people. He founded the Anarya Dosh Parigar Mandali Society for the removal of evils among the non-Aryans. Valankar became the first Dalit to launch a newspaper, the Vital Vidvasak, destroyer of Brahminical or ceremonial pollution. Valankar strove to remove the mark of untouchability by trying to bring caste Hindus to a consciousness of their inhuman behavior. Another pioneer in the Dalit upliftment was the Kisan Faguji Bansod. He was a proponent of upliftment of Dalits within the fold of Hinduism. He opened his press which published journals aimed at awakening the Dalits such as Valankar's Vital Vidvansak. Baba Saheb Ambedkar, who had experienced the worst form of caste discrimination during his childhood, fought against upper caste tyranny throughout his life. In the 1920s, Ambedkar started a fortnightly newspaper, Mook Nayak, leader of the voiceless, in 1920. He stated in the Mook Nayak that a national consciousness could not develop if social divisions were ignored. The newspaper presented the sufferings of the untouchables in the concept of the caste system. He also formed the Bahuskrit Hitakarani Sabha in 1924 with the motto of educate, agitate and organize, the focus being on mobilizing the masses. It marked the beginning of a new socio-economic and political movement striving to bring about equality for the oppressed classes. Another newspaper he started with the aim of defending the rights of the depressed classes was Bahishkrit Bharat 1927. Ambedkar organized the All India Scheduled Caste Federation in 1942, while several other leaders of the depressed classes had founded the All India Depressed Classes Association in 1920s. Ambedkar condemned the hierarchical and insular caste system as a whole and advocated the annihilation of the institution of caste for the real progress of the nation. The struggle of the depressed classes led to the provision of special representation for these classes in the Government of India Act 1935. Others in the 1900s, such as the Maharaja of Kolhapur, encouraged the non-Brahmin movement, which spread to the southern states in the first decade of the 20th century and was joined by the Kammas, Reddis, Belladas, and powerful intermediate castes and the Muslims. During the 1920s in South India, the non-Brahmins organized the self-respect movement led by E.V. Ramasamy Nayakar. There were numerous other movements demanding that the ban on the entry of lower castes into temples be lifted. Sri Narayana Guru in Kerala led a lifelong struggle against upper caste domination. He coined the slogan "One religion, one caste, one God for mankind," which his disciple Sahadaran Ayyappan changed into "No religion, no caste, no God for mankind." Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar led the Maha Satyagraha in March 1927 to challenge the regressive customs of the high caste Hindus. He stressed the necessity of removing ideas of high and low and inculcating self-elevation through the self-help, self-respect and self-knowledge. He led a procession of some 2,500 untouchables through the town of Mahad to the Chavdar tank, a public source of water tank from which the untouchables were not allowed to draw water. Dr. Ambedkar took water from the tank and drank it. There were huge protests by caste Hindus. Later in December 1927, Ambedkar and his colleagues burned the Manusmriti at the same place as a gesture of getting rid of inequalities. Dr. Ambedkar established the Bahishkrit Hitakarani Sabha in 1924 to highlight the difficulties and grievances of the Dalits before the government. Its motto was educate, agitate and organize. The Constitution of Free India has made equality and non-discrimination on the basis of caste imperative. The struggle against caste discrimination could not be successful during the British rule. The foreign government had its limitations. It could not afford to invite hostile reaction from the orthodox sections by taking up any radical measures. Also, no social uplift was possible without economic and political upliftment. All this could be realized only under the government of a free India. The Constitution of Free India abolishes untouchability and declares the endorsement of any disability arising out of untouchability as unlawful. It also forbids any restriction on access to wells, tanks, bathing ghats, hotels, cinemas, clubs, etc. In one of the directive principles, the Constitution has laid down that the state shall strive to promote the welfare of the people by securing and protecting as effectively as it may a social order in which justice, social, economic, and political shall inform all the institutions of national life. Like, share, and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you. Bye.